And now we are going to touch on the synopsis or the course roadmap, summary, syllabus, whatever you want to call it, of this course, where I believe you will get a better picture what are we going to discuss as we move forward. I would be free to presume you have gone through the more basic course of open source intelligence and now you are ready to move forward with more advanced topics. If not, I would really encourage you to go through that videos. Maybe you already know a lot of things I talk about in that basic OSINT course, but it is always better to have a clear, sorted out head before approaching something more advanced. At least I have that kind of thinking. I have created this course with 7 sections, and now I will briefly touch on each one of them, so you will know what you're in for. In the first section, called Introduction, we will, or better to say, we already have covered the instructor welcome, and now we are going through the course overview. So in the next part of this video, we will touch on the target audience and the prerequisites that would be needed for you to successfully complete this course. In section 2, called OSINT 101, we will go on and make an advanced approach to OSINT by defining it, say how we use it, who uses it, where and what types we think are relevant to our OSINT model of investigations. Also, we will again go through the OSINT intelligence cycle. I say again because if you visited the first course called Open Source Intelligence here on CodeRed, you already heard some of the things we will discuss here. Then the ethical and moral side of our investigations, and finally the OPSEC or the operations security. Open source intelligence is very important in our cyber defense, so this is something where we will go through how are OPSEC and OSINT related to each other. Section 3, called Configuring the OSINT Virtual Environment, is dedicated to setting a secure virtual lab environment that you will use for your OSINT investigations. That environment consists of many things that, if you're not careful, can make your research and investigating go corrupt. And a big part of that environment is privacy, just for you to be discreet while you conduct your open source intelligence activities. Besides the installation, configuration, and preparation for using different OSINT tools that we will go through this course, one thing that we will also cover is the virtual machine maintenance and preservation. Virtual machine hygiene is a big part of our work. Then in section 4, we will jump into the advanced search engine usage by using the advanced techniques and operators to search Google. Use the Internet of Things search engines in more detail, like Census and Shodan. And finally, how to do research part when accessing the deep web and the dark web. Remember, we went through the internet structure and how to access dark web in the earlier course. After section 4 comes section 5. And in this section 5, called Advanced Linux OSINT Tools, we will go through a couple of hands-on demonstrations of the tools in a more advanced manner. We'll connect different OSINT and reconnaissance tools with APIs to get the most out of them. The tools that we will mention are ReconNG, Spiderfoot, Sherlock the Harvester, Sublister, and DNS Twist. Section 6 is dedicated to the open source methodology and to the part how to build a good OSINT report. Everything is great with the tools, as you know, and you should know how to use them. But as Sherlock Holmes said, I cannot make bricks without clay. You can have all the data in the world if you cannot structure it in a readable and a comprehensible format with which you or your client will make an informed decision based on that report. I will show you how a good OSINT report should look like by going through the report structure in more detail, and in the end to teach you how to summarize your findings in the best way for your potential audiences. The last section, number 7, which is called Conclusion, I will give you my final thoughts about open source intelligence with different recommendations on the subject. The thing is that you cannot look at OSINT as a group of tools with which you will gather data and information and summarize all of them in one report. Okay, you can do that, but the way of thinking is key here. The more in depth you go with OSINT, the better you will be at protecting yourself and/or your organization. Hope this overview gave you a good understanding of the course structure that is ahead of us. As for everything, it would be necessary for you to know some of the things prior to approaching this advanced course about open source intelligence and privacy. People often banalize knowledge or some activities. I will give you an example. I play the guitar, and not that rarely people say, "Come on, just come and play for us." But that just playing is the sum of all my hours of practice and learning that skill. So it's not just come on over and play. I always tend to prepare myself better than that. That analogy, you can translate that analogy to almost any other profession or skill. Concerning this advanced open source intelligence and privacy course, it will be good for you to have or to come from an IT or a cybersecurity field or area, or at least have some background, because familiarity with different IT terms and concepts would be a great plus. You will have some difficulties if you're not already familiar with those terms. Then, to have a working computer with virtualization capabilities, here I have to mention VirtualBox, which is a free and open source hypervisor program that may be used on Windows, Mac OS, and or Linux. You can download it via the website virtualbox.org. I will talk about it in more detail in the third section of this course, where we will prepare our environment. And then obviously to have internet access, because all of our activities are based um, to do investigations online, which you obviously have since you are watching this course online, I presume. Or how are you watching this course right now? Please answer. Okay, I'm just kidding there. Next would be Linux knowledge, since the majority of the tools we're going to use in the open source intelligence context are Linux based and designed to work in that operating system environment. Next, after Linux, I have to mention Python as a programming language. Um, Python is one of the most popular and useful programming languages in the cybersecurity community. Most of the tools are written in that language. To be honest, I'm not a programmer or a developer, but I have gone through the Python training lessons because I wanted to know how things worked and how can I use that knowledge to my advantage as I grew with cybersecurity, especially OSINT. Also, Python is often recommended as the first language to learn for people that are new to cybersecurity because of its wide use and the minimal learning curve. And as the last prerequisite, which is in my opinion mandatory for everyone, is for you to have a fun drive. That is not advice, rather your imagination and curiosity in the context of open source intelligence. One of the things is that OSINT is asking the right questions and then trying to answer those questions with the correct answers, of course. In that way, you or your client can make an informed decision based on that input. After the prerequisites, I would like to mention the target audience for this course. Maybe this course is an advanced one, but the target audience can be pretty wide. Open source intelligence concerns everyone, and almost everyone uses it daily, but I would like to narrow it down just a little bit. First, I'd like to mention cybersecurity and IT professionals, since that is my profession and my field. Then there are penetration testers that use OSINT tools as a leading resource for the pen testing reconnaissance phase. Even though you could put pen testers to the group of cyber and IT professionals, I like to mention them as a separate group here. After them, I will mention social engineers, which also are a part of the previously mentioned audience. But their whole profession is based on pretext, and what better pretext to get is by collecting information from the open source resources. Then, as in the previous OSINT course, I have to mention military and law enforcements, which use OSINT a lot in their decision making. After them, journalists, especially in the context of fake news, disinformation, and misinformation. You might think now that journalists have to have a great deal of IT skills to approach this kind of course. True, but also this kind of advanced OSINT courses can only expand their skill set and make their jobs maybe a little bit easier and potentially more interesting. After journalists, I will mention private investigators, where OSINT as a digital skill is unavoidable in almost any investigation. Now I have listed the recruiters and human resources personnel, and different researchers in the end. Gathering data and information and putting it in the right context to make appropriate decisions based on those findings is not easy, but not impossible. If you didn't find yourself on this list of targeted audience, do not worry or do not get discouraged because I could have made a mistake by simply forgetting about some profession. So I apologize for it. But that won't change the fact that we'll go through some of the most interesting topics in OSINT. And now, after my welcome and the course overview, the only thing I want to say to you is buckle up and see you in the next video where we will start to talk about advanced open source intelligence and privacy in more detail.